Hi, so I think we can start. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in on a Sunday morning. My name is Guneet Khanna, and I'm the co-founder and director of ReWiser. Today, we will discuss the SAT exam. Here's a quick overview of how our webinar has been structured. So for the first 15 minutes, we will discuss the SAT exam briefly. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Following that, we are pleased to have a guest speaker with us. We'll engage in a conversation about college admissions journey for high school students. Afterwards, we'll have a Q&A session. During that time, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. See, the idea here is to understand a high school student's journey from 9th to 12th grade and how these exams really, the SAT, ACT, and the AP exams really fit into their journey, right? In this webinar, you will learn the main things that you as students and parents need to plan and prepare for during this college admissions journey, right? Before we get into it, let me quickly give you a brief about ReWiser. ReWiser is a high school learning support company that works with students worldwide, and we help them achieve their academic goals. We work with students as early as grade 8 and work with them all the way up to grade 12. So we help out students in two main areas. The first is test prep, where we coach them for standardized tests like the SAT, ACT, APs across various subjects, IELTS, etc. And the second is academic tutoring. Here we work with students who are doing the Cambridge, which is the IGCSE, AS, and A level programs, and IB. And we help them with subject tutoring, like, maths, physics, biochem, all of that, concepts, exam prep. That's that. So these are the two areas that we largely work in. We have been in this space for about more than about 9 years, and we have worked with more than 5,000 families. We have students from across the globe, about 8 to 9 countries. We're headquartered out of Bangalore. So now let's try and understand the undergraduate college admissions abroad versus India. Why do students even need to take the exams like the ACT and the SAT and all, right? Now, the US school system is very similar to our state board or the PU system that we have in India. So they have a core curriculum, which is defined by the education board. And then each state chooses how they wish to conduct the curriculum. So this results, in varying levels of expertise in each subject, making it very difficult for the universities to judge, what is a student's caliber. So they don't have a nationalized standard exam like we do, right? We have the CBSE and the ICSE exams where everyone writes the same paper. So here, when the universities are looking at the scores and you say, okay, I've got 98% in CBSE maths, every college knows what your mathematical skills are like, right? So the universities in the US needed to even the playing field. So they collaborated with two companies. One was the College Board, which conducts the SAT. And then you had the ACT.org, which conducts the ACT. So they designed two tests in which students are assessed on basic English and basic math. The aim being that the students should know at least this much English and this much maths to take on a college level course. And in turn, it helped the universities understand what is your caliber. So how well you score on these tests helps them decide which are the courses that you would be eligible for or which you can take on and complete and do well in, right? So in India, we have very clear cutoff scores. You have, college will say, if you're planning to apply to, say, SRCC, if you have 99.9% in your 12th grade final score, you get in. If you don't get in. In the US, it's not like this. They have a very holistic, system of college admissions, which we will be discussing with a guest speaker a little later in the webinar. And the SAT scores, there is no clear cutoff. But there is a kind of range that, with these kind of scores, you usually see students going to these kind of colleges. And it varies from college to college. It can also vary from course to course within the same university. So if you're applying to Georgia Tech for engineering, you might require a certain set of expected score is there. Whereas if you're applying for another course in Georgia Tech, you might need a different score, right? When the universities, when they are reviewing your application, they generally focus in four main areas. First and foremost, of course, is your academics. They want to see your overall performance from 9 to 12. Unlike Indian colleges, which mainly focus on the 12th grade final exam results, or now that you have the CUET, they have, when you're planning to apply abroad, they usually ask for your transcripts all the way from ninth onwards. So ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th is very important. So that means you should prioritize your studies early on, and you need to show growth and improvement. Another aspect is the standardized test scores. In India, we have competitive exams depending on the field you're interested in. So if you're planning to study engineering, you'll write about the JEE exam. You'll write the JEE exam. If you're planning to do medicine, you do NEET. For law, it's CLAT, and so on. But outside of India, it's a bit different. They've got this one standardized test, which is the SAT or the SAT. You don't need to take both. You can take any one. So whether you're planning to study economics or finance, engineering, medicine, biochemistry, you're still taking this one exam, right? Another thing that they pay attention to is a student's profile. And we will discuss this with our guest speaker more in detail. What do we mean by profile? What are the relevant activities? The last and the most important part of your application, of course, is your college essays. Now, beyond test scores and grades, essays provide a window into your personality. They've given you a platform for you to share your experiences, your challenges, goals, what shapes your unique identity. It also humanizes your application. It allows the admission officers to connect with you on a personal level. So your essays are an opportunity for you to stand out and make a lasting impression. Of course, you will be required to invest a lot of time and effort to write these compelling narratives that honestly show who you are, right? Now, looking at the standardized tests, which you could be taking, let's have a quick look at across 9, 10, 11, 12, what you could be looking at. In grade 9, you could consider preparing for the PSAT. They have a PSAT 8-9. It's important for you to take this test because you can gauge your readiness for future tests. It will also help you familiarize yourself with the format, also identify areas of improvement, right? In grade 10, we usually recommend begin serious preparation for the SAT, take a diagnostic test, and you could even potentially complete your SAT prep while you're still in grade 10. You can also take the PSAT 10 if you wish to, right? By finishing your English portions in grade 10, you're really staggering out your prep for various standardized tests, right? You're not pushing everything onto grade 11, which can then become too intense. You can also start with manageable APs, like, which are more skill-based and interest-based. So if you're someone who's very fond of coding and has been coding for a while, you could take AP Computer Science A. Or, taking on, if you have interest in economics, taking AP Computer Science, micro and macroeconomics is a possibility. AP Psychology is also good if you have an interest there. Avoid advanced subjects like AP Calculus BC at this stage. If you think you're very good with mathematics, you could also take pre-calculus in grade 10 itself. Now, grade 11 is intensive for standardized testing, right? US students who should take the PSAT NMSQT to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. This usually happens in the October of grade 11. Again, in grade 11, I would say start your prep early enough for the APs that you plan to take if you're planning to send your AP scores with your college applications. This test will need to be taken in the month of May. For the students who are doing the Indian curriculum, it's soon after you finish grade 11. And for those who are doing IB or Cambridge, it will be in the month of May along with your final exams, right? So grade 11 is crucial for standardized testing. So plan your study schedule carefully. In grade 12, I would say focus on completing your college applications. Having your SAT and ACT scores ready by now is an advantage, right? While you can still take the AP exams in grade 12, they are primarily for earning college credits rather than enhancing your college application. All right, let's do a deep dive into the SAT exam. So the exams are conducted 7 times in a year. While students are permitted to take the exam multiple times, we generally advise, not to take more than 2 attempts. Um, Colleges, have varying preferences when it comes to reporting standardized test scores. Some universities require you to submit all the scores for the SAT attempts that you've taken. Some will allow you to superscore. That means you pick the best of English and the best of the math score across all the tests you've taken, and then you submit those. And some universities want you to submit only your best score, but in a single test. Now, you will hear, some words like test optional. Some universities are test optional. This means a student can choose to submit their scores if they feel it strengthens their application. But they're not required to do so. It's not mandatory. Test optional policies came into play during the pandemic when the SAT was still a pen and paper test and it could not be conducted everywhere easily. Then you have test blind universities where standardized tests are not considered. So this basically means that the standardized test score does not influence the decision-making process of your admission. Universities like the UCs are test blind. And some universities mandate that you take either the SAT or the ACT. They will not accept your application without a test scores. And these are the more selective universities like MIT, Yale, Georgia Tech, Dartmouth, Brown, Harvard. These universities have chosen to become test mandatory. Now, the decision to take these exams will depend on the policies of the universities to which you are applying, right? If you already have a final college list ready and none of them require your SAT score, you don't need to take the exam. But if you don't have a college list prepared, it might be a good idea to go ahead and take the SAT, because if you try and take it last minute, you may not get your potential score, right? Moreover, as an international student, we always advise students to go ahead and take the SAT score. That is if you're able to get a good score. Now, if you're applying to a particular geography, they have a standardized benchmark on which they are judging everybody. If you've taken that test and aced it, right, that's a great thing for your application. All right. You're just giving them as many data points as you can to assess your eligibility for a course. Another thing that I think we should be aware of is that the SAT and ACT scores extend beyond the United States. There are several countries, including Singapore, some universities in Canada and Australia, and even in India, which recognize and accept SAT scores. There are some universities that might even offer you a scholarship if you have a great score. Now, let's look at the SAT exam particularly. The test is now a digital exam. You have flexibility to use your own device. You can bring your laptop with the necessary software. The College Board conducts the test on an app called the Blue Book. You need to install this from the website on your computer, but you do need to go to a test center to take your exam, right? The exam is for about 2 hours and 14 minutes. Let's have a look at the structure of the exam. There are 2 sections, English and math. And in each of the sections, there are 2 modules each. So in the English section, there are 2 modules, each consisting of 27 questions. So you'll be writing a total of 54 questions, and you'll have 32 minutes for each module. So you're doing 54 questions in about 64 minutes, right? For math, also, you have 2 modules of 22 questions each. So you'll be doing 44 questions. You'll get a score between 400 to 1600 for your SAT exam, right? Typically, we want students to try and aim for a 1500 and above, because that puts you in the 99th percentile. What is being tested? In the SAT reading and writing section, your comprehension, language use, writing skills are being put to the test. You'll come across varying academic and literary passages, and you'll be answering questions for them to gauge your understanding. The test segment includes craft and structure, focuses on vocabulary and text evaluation, information and ideas where you interpret various texts and infographics. Then you have expression of ideas where you're refining written skills. And of course, standard English conventions, which is basic rules of English grammar and punctuation. In math, the content can be broadly categorized into four main areas: algebra, which has linear equations, inequalities, system of equations, and all. Problem solving and data analysis covers topics related to data interpretation, rates, ratios, proportions. Advanced math includes quadratic and exponential equations. Geometry and trigonometry focuses on concepts such as area, volume, lines, angles, triangles, right? Now, in math section, in the English, everything is multiple choice. In the math section, there are 25% questions where a student has to come up with his own answer and input that, right? Now, the digital SAT is section adaptive. What do we mean by section adaptive? In each section, there are two modules, module 1 and module 2. Everyone gets the same level of difficulty in module 1. How well you do in module 1 decides which version of module 2 you are going to get. So let's say you do well on module 1 and you maybe get 16 out of 20. Now I'm taking very random numbers here. College Board does not disclose their algorithms. Say you do well on the first module. You will get a version of module 2 which is very challenging, but that's good. We want that because now this version potentially leads you to a higher score of, say, maybe 680 to 800, right? Now, on the other hand, if you score low on the first module, maybe you get only, say, 9 out of 20 questions correct. What it does is it takes you to a lower version you'll get a lower version of the second module. Now, what happens here is, while the questions may be easier here, it limits your score range. So maybe the highest you can score is 560. So even if you get everything correct on module 2, you can't score more than 560. Therefore, doing well on module 1 is imperative if you're looking to get a high score, right? Now, let's discuss our pedagogy briefly. We begin with the diagnostic test. This helps us see what your readiness level is. Post that, we will move on to phase 1, where we provide online live tutoring sessions and approximately 30 to 40 hours of classes for English and math. Each session lasts for about 2 hours, followed by assignments. And these sessions can be conducted in group or one-on-one. Phase 2, of course, involves practices and section tests. Once you have the concepts ready, we then move you on to time management, where each student is assigned a dedicated program coordinator or a mentor who conducts online meetings to assess a student's areas of strength and weaknesses. Based on these assessments, the mentor designs a personalized plan to address the student's needs. So if they're required to go back to classes, or remedials are put into place, sometimes even extra one-on-one sessions are given with the faculty. In phase 3, a student focuses on full-length practice tests. And we hope to complete at least 10 to 15 mock tests before the first attempt. And the mentor, of course, continues to monitor the progress and adjust the plan accordingly to ensure that there is improvement. All of these phases take place on our digital SAT platform, where students have access to comprehensive practice materials. And they also experience the same style of questioning as the actual SAT exam. Now, our programs they cater to various needs. We have the full SAT or ACT training programs. These can be done, like I mentioned, in batch classes or individual programs. Now, if a student requires only English or only math, these programs are also available. For some accelerated students, we also have self-paced programs, where we give you lesson videos and self-paced exercises and mock tests and all. It basically gives you a comprehensive checklist to make sure that you haven't missed any aspect of the test. So we have programs where a student can also do only mock tests on our digital platform. So we provide, customized requirements for everything. Now, if you have any questions, you can keep putting them in the chat box. We'll take them after a little while. Now, I'm thrilled to introduce a remarkable individual who has been transforming the landscape of education and career counseling. Please welcome Richa Dwivedi. Richa entered her, the career guidance space in 2004 after a career in corporate banking. Not just corporate banking, she was worked in various areas: business, media, stock analysis. She is an accredited MBTI trainer and a certified coach. So she's worked with over 10,000 people in career and college guidance. Richa has a certificate in college counseling from UCLA, and she's a member of the ACAC. Richa has also worked across industries as an experiential trainer for teams and leaders. She's led programs like on visioning, leadership, teamwork, conflict management with companies like Google, Lenovo, Pepsi, the Smart Cube, etc. Now, Richa also runs a monthly column called Career Cues in the Hindu. And she's the author of The Ultimate Guide of the 21st Century Careers. Welcome to the talk, Richa. We are really privileged to have you here. Now, my first question to you, I think I can stop sharing this so that everyone can see you. Super. Great. So now, one of the first questions that I have for you is, from the perspective of a college admissions team, what characteristics or qualities define a successful student? How can an applicant demonstrate these traits in their application? What does success for them look like?
Right. So first of all, thank you so much, Guneet, for inviting me. This is a wonderful platform and I, love meeting all the students. And I know that this is the time when all the grade 11 students are really gearing up and, life shifts into a different gear because it's a very important year for you and you want to be able to balance everything. And I'm really happy to be able to be here and answer your questions. To answer your specific question, Guneet, if you're saying what does a successful student look like? What are the characteristics? So I would like to first sort of divide the world into two blocks. Let's say we are talking about, really top universities, read Ivy Leagues and top 20, 25 universities in the US and Oxford, Cambridge in UK. And sort of other very, very good universities, right? So I'm sort of making these two blocks because you kind of need to approach them differently. If you are aiming at the very top at the Ivy Leagues and the top universities, there the story, the environment, the expectations are different. If you're aiming at universities which are, very good universities but don't have like single digit acceptance rates. So let me tell you, like, how do you distinguish between the two really? So if you look at the top universities, you'll find they have single digit acceptance rates, which means that 5% or 7% of their applicants will actually be successful, right? So you can imagine what those odds are. And you have people all over the world applying to these universities. So really the cream of every school in every country is applying to them, right? Including in the US itself, including every great student from India, right? So you are competing with very, very high quality students and the acceptance levels are low simply because they can't accommodate everybody, right? So that's really the top tier universities. And then the very good universities, there the acceptance rates may be anywhere from 12%, 15% to 30, 40%, right? Beyond that, if we look at universities where the acceptance rates are more than 40 or 50%, that's a third category where you essentially need to be a competent academic student and then they are happy. So if I look at the characteristics for the first two sets, so when we look at Ivy Leagues, they are really looking for you to, they take for granted top class academics. So you need to really be demonstrating from grade 9 onwards that you are in the top 5% of your class, right? Which
Okay.
will typically mean that if you're an ICSE or a CBSE student, we are looking at 97, 98%, at least 95% plus from grade 9 onwards, right? So that's one thing. Then when it comes to standardized testing, they would naturally be looking at higher level scores. We would be looking at 1550 plus when it comes to the SAT. When it comes to the ACT, we would be looking at 34 and above 35, 36 really would be what we would be looking for when it comes to standardized testing. Now, this is really what I will call a hygiene factor. So hygiene factor means that if you don't even have this, then really your chances are almost non-existent. But if you have this, now you are in the game, and now you're at an acceptance level of less than 10%, right? So then if we are looking at, so how do I distinguish myself to be in the 10% that get there? I would say that you can try, right? So the way you can try is that, one, by having focus in the area that you are applying in, and demonstrating that you are striving to build something meaningful in that area. So let's say the area is computer science. So now, have you really used computer science, experimented with something, gone beyond the call of duty to try and create something which would be an original idea that you've tried to put together, which could be an application, but it shouldn't just be, an app that you've gotten created by someone, but it needs to have meaning in your world. That why did you create this? And, how have you struggled with the technology of it? Your essays need to demonstrate that. Suppose it's not computer science, suppose it's psychology, right? Then, how have you used the principles of psychology to either do some research or to reach out to people who don't have access to psychological services? How have you set things up? What have you read about it, right? So how have you gone deeper over a period of 3 to 4 years? So they don't just want to see that I did something in the last 6 months and I put something together quickly, but something that I have worked on from at least grade 10 onwards and built upon is really what they're looking for, right? And the other thing that really cuts a lot of, gives you a lot of credentials with these universities would be to have a social project where you have demonstrated some leadership. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a social work project where you're working with underprivileged. It could also be something that you've done with your peers in your school. Like, it could be a girls who code club that you've set up in your own school, where you are helping people who are not into computer science to understand and have some things with computer science. One of my students had built a Rubik's Cube club for senior citizens in his condo, right? So not necessarily low income people, but anyone in society. That how have you brought together a group of people to make a difference in society? So these are the characteristics, I would say, for top tier universities. At the next level, I think that the characteristics are similar. It's just that the story is a little less competitive. So just to not go on and on, because this is such a long subject, I'll take a pause here, Guneet, and we can maybe
Sure.
explore it
So
again.
basically,
Yeah.
what you've mentioned is it cannot be a clinical checklist that someone is looking at. It has to have purpose, it has to have meaning, and definitely if it has a social angle, goes a long way. So it's not something where you can say, okay, I did some social service, I did something for the underprivileged, went to an old age home. No, it's not that. And it has to
Yeah,
tie up
yeah.
with the major as well, you're saying, right?
Absolutely. So, Guneet, actually, I was a little amused when you said checklist, because if I may sound a little judgmental about ourselves and self-critical about Indians when I say this, but I feel that we Indians are very good at making a formula out of anything.
Yeah,
Acha, what
true.
do you want? You want a few hours in an NGO, you want this, a research paper, you want something, and we are very good at making that checklist. But because
Correct.
it's such a competitive space, admissions officers can really look through something which is not genuine and not coming together, right? So I would say that meaning and purpose and the thread that connects your whole story, that's what makes the real difference.
So what you're also saying is that it cannot be all over the place. It
Yeah.
has to be leading towards something, and it has to be real. It cannot be just, yeah, you're right. They do. I mean, whenever we attend these workshops, they're a smart lot. They understand what is fake and what is real. So we should, and actually, I think just beyond college admissions also, right? It should be real. In real life, you should be doing things which you value and you're passionate about, because then you can put the energy into it, right?
Absolutely. It's very difficult in 11th and 12th to do a lot of things that go beyond your school curriculum. So if it meshes in with what you like, that's what really works. So I really think that it's important for you to connect with it, and then for you to be able to write essays about it. So yes, it needs to have meaning and it needs to have connect with what you are asking for.
Great. So we often hear this is from the college admissions committee team that you were telling us when they are looking at applicants. Now, I want to also hear about, as parents, we've I'm sure most of us have also said it, that we've heard many parents say that if you get into an Ivy League college, I'll send you. I'm happy to send you abroad, otherwise not. But my question here is, how does a parent judge a child's potential and qualities? See, we don't want to just send them to a college, an Ivy League college. We want them to also succeed at completing that college, and for that to have a meaningful experience for the child. So, what specific attributes can the parents be looking for in a child's academic and personal development to help them decide, which is the college which is a right fit? That's one. Another is, how does a student figure out that how is he a good match for the university or not? you know and are there things that they could be doing to equip themselves for this journey?
Right. So let me try to address that statement that you said, that if you get through a top university and Ivy League, then I'll send you, otherwise I won't. So I feel that this statement often comes from at a very initial level where you've not really started exploring the colleges, because firstly, there are only 8 Ivy Leagues, and there are at least 25 universities in the US which have an international standing, right? So I think that if you're really looking for a university which has that international brand name, then I would say there are more than the Ivy Leagues. There are 25 universities to go for, and 25 or 30, I would say, great universities in the US. And now I'm only talking about the US, that will really give you that international brand name. Now, also, I feel that a parent, instead of thinking that what university would you go into among these, should you go into only the top five, I think what is more important to think is that in what university are you likely to perform such that you land up in the top 25% of that batch when you graduate, right? Because ultimately, if you are among the top 10%, 15%, 20% of the students from a university, then you are likely to translate your college education into a successful career. On the other hand, if you're in the bottom 25%, even if it's of an Ivy League, then the struggle in your career is likely to be much higher, right? Because how you start really matters, and plus it impacts your self-esteem, and we all know that
Oh, big
self-esteem
time.
is everything. When it comes to navigating your career journey, self-esteem is the most important thing. So I think the way parents should think about it is that which is that university that matches my child's skill sets, so that the kid can really do very well over there. And looking at the kids' academic potential is a very good indicator, since you are asking how. So if a
Okay.
kid is doing very well academically, then really they can aim for the top universities. They need to have initiative beyond academics. And if a student is not into doing all these social projects and etc., there are two types of profiles. The profile can either be pointy or well rounded. So, a well rounded profile is where you have some great extracurricular activities, maybe debating, maybe sports, maybe music, maybe dance that you've done at some level. And you've done, apart from extracurricular activities, you've also, maybe done a social project that really brings things together, and your academics are group good. So that's really a well-rounded profile. A pointy profile is where you take that one subject that you're applying for and go into depth of it. So you write a research paper, you then do maybe a couple of levels of testing on an application that you've created, right? You work with the professor in this area, right? You are writing a blog about it, or you are conducting workshops about that, right? So you're going deeper into that one area. So most students who are academically gifted will be able to build either a pointy profile or a well-rounded profile, right? So if your child is academically doing very well, then they are likely to be able to aim for the top universities across the world, right? On the other hand, if you find that your child is likes to have an easy pace of work, and they're doing well but they're not really at the cutting edge top of their batch, then I think that the thing to do is to look at universities that are closer to that person's range, which could be like a Boston University, or even an NYU could be something that they could reach, right? Maybe not UC Berkeley, but we could be looking at UCST, right? So some of the smaller liberal arts universities, these are also very well reputed. Johns Hopkins University, right? There are some very, very well reputed universities that you can reach out for, where the competition levels are a little bit lower, but you can give it a shot, right? So that's how I would say that you would try and match your students' profile to the university, and just broaden your mind really beyond the Ivy Leagues and see what's out there. And because there are, I would say, 150 universities in the US that will prepare your child for an excellent career, so long as your kid manages to do well in that university. So that's what you need to look for, that which is that university where my kid is likely to perform very well.
So one of the big takeaways I think from this, this conversation that I've had is that it's not only about the brand name of the place where you're sending. It's about how they need to be on the top, and that affects their confidence as well. And I believe, I mean, my personal thing is that confidence is everything. If you're confident that you can do something, most probably you'll
Yes,
figure out a way to do it. So this goes for university selection as well.
absolutely.
Interesting, interesting. And I was very surprised to hear, when you said that, we've heard this, that co-curricular activities are very important, and without this, there is absolutely no this thing. And you've kind of shown us a different path where you can say that your profile can also be an academic profile. It does not necessarily have to be aligned with only the well-rounded profile. So I think that was a great learning for some of us. Like you're mentioning, internship, research projects, all of these can enhance you. But if you have an academic profile, you do it in that space rather than in, like you said, random places just to tick mark things.
Yeah,
So
and
this, I
some
think,
students are not like that, you know. In
yeah.
fact, I've had some students who say that, okay, why am I doing this NGO work? It's not coming from inside me. And, it will not work also. If it's not coming from inside them, they will not be able to sustain it over 3 or 4 years. So for such students, it's better that you do an academic enrichment program at some of the top universities. You do maybe 2 levels of research in a certain area. You do an internship in that same area as well. You write more about what you like. You read more about what you like. You perhaps do some Olympiads and academic testing so that you build your profile around the subject that you love.
That's impressive. That's really, I think that's an eye opener for most parents to know that it's not just, it can be all your extracurricular activities, and what you're doing beyond can be limited, or it can be based around the area of academics as well. Now about the applications, I had a question. There's a lot of terms that we hear: early admission, early action, regular admission. Can you explain what are these, and what is the difference between any of these, and who should be going for, early admission, and who should be going for a regular admission?
Right. So see, there is EA, ED, and RD, right? Okay, actually, I'll just put all the terms out in the meeting group chat. So there is EA, which is early action, right? And then there is ED, which is early decision. And then there is REA, which is restrictive early action, right? And then there is RD, which we all understand, which is regular decision, right? So these are the different rounds in which you can apply, right? So early action merely means that there is a certain early deadline at which point they will start processing applications, right? So for the US, most universities' early action deadline is November 1st. So if
Okay.
you have your act together by November 1st, then you can apply early. Now, what happens in applying early is that you get your decision by December, which is, very, very good. And also you get a certain breather in the sense that, see, firstly, you get your decision early. Secondly, you also have a slightly higher chance in that university because the early action acceptance rates are higher than the regular decision
Oh, okay.
right? So the challenge over here is to get your act together by November 1st because often students are so enmeshed in their extended essays and perhaps in their testing, and a lot of things have not come together to put their whole essays together, and all their applications may not to be together. But we really encourage our students to apply to as many students in the early action round as possible. Then there is early decision. Early decision means that you are really putting all your chips in that university. So you're essentially declaring that if I get through this university, then I will withdraw from all other universities, and this is the university I will go in for. So early decision is really a double-edged sword in that sense. You should go in for early decision if you're really very, very sure that there is this university, that if you get this, then you are happy to, withdraw from all other universities, that this is the one that matters the most to me. right? Early action starts on 1st November. Yeah, yes, previous year of admission. Yeah, right, Mr. Khatri. So I would say that so early decision, firstly, that secondly, so if you get through the early decision thing, then you should not be thinking, oh, but I would have also liked to check out the UC Berkeley. Do I get through or not? Now, if you get through UC Berkeley, too bad. You are
I
going
believe it's a
to.
federal offense if you put in an early
Um,
decision and decide not to go for that
Well,
university.
it's not a criminal offense ultimately, so it's more like, they'll next time you apply for a master's somewhere, it really like looks bad on your reputation. Somewhere universities will know that you've done this. But more importantly, the school has to sign an early decision agreement. So if you break your early decision agreement, then that school kind of gets blacklisted in that university's record. So you are actually impacting all the future students who are going to apply to that school, and you're impacting your school's reputation if you break your early decision agreement, right? So that's early decision for you. And if
That's binding. Another question I have is,
binding,
so is early action binding, not binding? No.
early action is not binding, early decision is binding.
So early action just means that I'm ahead of the curve. I'm already ready with everything and I'm sending in my papers. And you say that this is an advantage because acceptance rates are higher, despite being in a more competitive pool.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then there is restrictive early action. Now, some of the top universities, like Yale would have a restrictive early action thing for you, right? So, where you have restrictive early action, what that means is that you can apply to only this one university in
Okay.
the early round, except for other public universities. So you can't apply to other private universities in the early round.
All right.
Restrictive early action, however, is not binding. So if you get through, you don't have to take it. But you can't do many EAs, right? So
Got
like
it.
Princeton has a REA, Harvard has a REA, right? So a lot of universities that have an REA will have this expected expectation from you that you will not apply to many other universities at the same time, right? So that's REA for you. Then regular decision, of course, is like most regular decision rounds are in January. So that's, you're part of the regular pool, and then you will get acceptances by March or April, right? And that's the regular pool that you are part of. So that's, I hope I've made these distinctions clear. I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
to answer any more questions.
I think most of them are clear. My next question, actually, a follow-up question to this would be, so when do acceptances really start coming in?
So the early acceptances, EA, ED acceptances start coming in December. Some of the EAs will also come in late January or in February, right? So that's for your EAs and EDs, and the REAs. The RDs will usually come in March and April.
March. And this is all. So while you have not taken your 12th grade exams, you already have college admissions
If
for
you have
your.
applied early, which is why we recommend students should apply early, and we recommend that students should apply early to one or two dream universities and one or two safety universities. So at
Okay.
least you have something in your hand when you
Hmm.
go in for your board. So that gives you a breather. It sort of calms students down. It can otherwise become a very high stress thing. So I feel that
Correct.
applying for a few universities early really helps.
Now, again, a question just completely out of context, but I think with something which most parents have is that um, now you've been given in the US, you get unconditional admissions, right? You've not taken your this thing like unlike the UK. Now, what happens if you don't get the scores that like your predicted scores go into the universities? What if you don't have a score that matches your predicted score? What happens usually?
And you are asking me this in context of the US admissions.
Only US admissions.
Only US admissions. Okay, right. So now see, because US admissions are unconditional, you will get your admission,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Unless you tank really badly, right? But I have really not heard this with any student that it's really happened that the school predicted 95% plus and you got like 70%, right? So
Hmm.
itna hota nahi hai. वो होगा कि आपने 95% the school was projected and what you got is about 85%, let's say. So you will still get your admission, right? However, again, it impacts the reputation of the school. So it'll be like a black mark against that school. So next time they will, the weight they give to a student coming from that school will be a little less. So you'll
Hmm.
be impacting again the school's reputation over there.
Got
That's
it.
will happen in the US.
Okay. Now, see, there are so many things to prepare for. Like, you mentioned extracurriculars, whether they are aligned to your academics or a well-rounded, profile. You start that from as early as grade nine, is what you're saying. So, what is the right time to start preparing for college?
I think it depends on you. I think grade 10 is always a great time to start because, grade 11 otherwise gets extremely hectic, right? So if you start in grade 10, and that too in early grade 10, like you start in April or May before that summer, then that really gives you time to put your act together, right? I would say students who are ambitious and focused should start in grade 9, right?
Okay.
So starting in grade 9 will really help you to experiment a little bit more, to say, okay, maybe I want to do computer science and robotics. Oh no, come on, let me try finance and
Mm.
exam. So if you're in grade 9, then it gives you enough time to explore, figure out, and then come together with a decision in grade 10. So typically, I would say that if the student is focused and uh, um, ready to start pursuing their goals, then ninth is a great time to start. On the other hand, I feel that by starting, you also have that little bit of pressure, because now you have a counselor, you're having a call every 2 weeks or so. They're asking you, did you do this? Did you do that? You have a list of to dos, you not only from school, but also from your counselor. So the student has to be prepared for that. So if you are not in the student is not in a frame of mind and they say, oh my God, and then they start ducking those calls and so on, then maybe ninth is not the right time to start. So I would say
Mm.
typically if the student is ready, the ninth is a great time. Otherwise, 10th is a great time.
Got it. Got it. Now, we also hear a lot of students take a gap year after their school, the 12th day, they'll take a gap year. Now, how do gap years impact college admissions? Do they look at it favorably, or is it like a black hole which should not be looked at all? What is your perspective on that?
So again, I would say gap years are a double-edged sword, right? Because typically, often what happens, in my experience, I've seen the moment the student says, I'm going to take a gap year, now they stop doing anything other than academics in grade 12. So they just say, okay, I'm just going to focus on my academics in grade 12. So now by the time you finish your boards and then you chill a little bit because now you finished your boards and now you start thinking about like what to do next, it's already June, July. Now, November is your early action deadline in any case. So
Got
now
it.
from July to November, you have what barely 4 months to really do something that shows what you've done in your gap year. So that's actually very little time. And sometimes what happens then is that you are not really able to build a very strong profile that shows that, I've used the gap year to do something that's really valuable, right? So then it doesn't add to your profile. And to that extent, it may subtract a little bit, right?
Got it.
On the other hand, if you say that if you decide in grade 11 or in grade 12, let's say that I'm going to take a gap year, and now you focus on doing projects, the only thing you drop is application. So you really build on your projects. Then the moment your boards get over, you really use that summer to do like a 3 month, 4 month internship or a project with someone. You really deepen that story so that by the time November comes, you've got two solid things to show for what you did because of this gap year. Then that gap year is valuable. So it should be thought through really, really well before a student does a gap year.
Super. I think we've covered some great questions and we have a great understanding. So basically, as per you, from the student's perspective, how does a student explore career interests? How do they gain clarity about future career paths? You're young, you still don't know a whole lot. What is the process that you think they should be following?
Right. So, we do a very detailed career guidance program with students, which is like a 3.5 hour one-to-one program where we do testing, of course, but we also do a lot of counseling where we explain to them about what the different career options are. We help them to understand the tools that they are testing on and to build a sort of a self analysis. And then we use that as a filter on the initial career interests that they've got. We call the parents in, we all of us sit and discuss, and meaningfully we come out with what is a primary option, a backup option, or a long term option. On the other hand, I found that a lot of what is available in career guidance for students is merely testing. Now, I do want to tell students that, testing by itself is not going to give you great answers because any good test will show that there are 30 career options that are suitable to you, because human beings are complex, right? There is no one right answer for any of us based only on our personality profile, right? That answer comes from a lot of other things: your interests, your understanding of your goals, your family's goals, looking at the different challenges and putting it all together again, right? So I would say that once we do this now, one of the things that I recommend all my students to do is to explore the careers around the career path. So like our career guidance report will have links for you to see YouTube videos, to look at some short courses, to look at summer programs. And from this perspective, it's good to start in ninth and 10th again, because it gives you the time to
The
explore.
time, yeah.
Do a summer program, watch a few videos, discuss it, read a book, talk to people, shadow somebody, go and talk to a few professionals and really understand. Like, sometimes students have this view of law because they've been watching Lincoln Lawyer, they've been watching Suits, and they say, oh my God, I want to do law. And then you put them in thesis court,
Yeah,
and
it's a
they're like,
different
oh
game.
my
Yeah.
God, I don't want to do this, right? So,
Mm.
it's really important for you to get a real world perspective on what those career options are before you decide, right? So, Guneet, I'm seeing a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
I think we should take up the questions in the chat box now. Let's start answering these questions. Okay, so the first one is please explain about the ACT test. So let me take that one. We do have webinars about the SAT and the ACT regularly every 2 weeks. We've put up a form here. Please fill up that form and let us know. We will also share a video link with you where you can immediately have access. You can call us and book a one-on-one. I'd be happy to take you through the details. And okay, so good for that. The next one is for UG Humanities. Is math necessary in the SAT exam? Um, yes, math. If you're taking the SAT exam, you have to write. There is no maths is not an optional component. You have to take. Um, if your college requires an SAT score, you have to take math and English both. It's a test that has both the components which are mandatory. You could, on the other hand, look at a university that does not require the SAT score in case you think maths is a challenge for your child. Okay, what is the recommended timeline for taking only mock tests, SATs, before the exam? Okay, if you have prepared for the SAT already, see if you're a top scorer, 4 to 5 tests is enough. But don't take them every day. I would say maybe take 2 in a week. Closer to the exam, you could even take 3, but keep aside time for remedials. When you take a test, more and more tests don't increase your score. When you take a test, you have to analyze the mistakes you've made, understand exactly what the mistake is, go back and practice till you've bridged those gaps, and then come back to take another test to see if you're headed in the right direction. So usually for top scorers, some of my top scorers have not taken more than 4 to 5 tests, but they've spent 80% of their time analyzing and putting remedials into place. Um, an average student, if time management is a problem, then I would say 8 to 10 tests is what you will require to get the hang of things. I hope I answered that question. Ankush has a question. What is the best way to select combinations like business and law in any country like the US or UK or Australia? Would you like to take that question, Richa?
Yeah, so it's saying best way to select combinations like business and law. So, well, in the US, frankly, there's almost any combination that you can pick up, right? In UK, you can go into the universities and see whether combinations are there. There are too many business and law kind of combinations because law is kind of a professional degree, and often it sort of stands by itself, right? So if you're looking for combinations with law, Ankush, then I mean we can discuss that a little bit more in depth, but there are not too many. But with business, you'll find that there are a huge number of things you can combine in any country, and you can go to the university's website and see which university you like, which combination you like, and pick that up. In the US, there is this whole thing about STEM and non-STEM, right? So if you've done a STEM course, you get a 3-year post-study work visa, while if you've done a non-STEM course, you get a 1-year post-study work visa. Now, some business programs are STEM designated and some are not. It depends on how much math and stats there is in that program, right? So when you're looking at combinations in the US, then it's a good idea to have that lens of saying, is it STEM designated or is it not STEM designated?
Super. The next question we have is from Kidhari. She says, my daughter is academically at about 80%, but she has well rounded extracurriculars like multiple published books, leadership roles in social clubs, and non-profits, and other things, including sports. She's in grade 11 and wants to do UG psychology. How do you recommend that she approaches her admission process?
Right. So, Mrs. Sundaram, I would think that, or Miss Sundaram, sorry, I don't know who it is, right? So, I would think that it depends on which country you are applying to. So, if you're applying to the UK, then their academic guidelines are absolutely clear. There's no ambiguity in it. So, if they're saying 80%, that means 80%. If they're saying 85%, then you don't qualify, right? But if we are looking at the US, we have a little bit more leeway. Now, the leeway, however, does not extend to Ivy Leagues and top universities, because there the academic rigor is so high that even if your child is very gifted in how they are engaging with the world and the leadership roles that they are doing, but they know that this kid will not be able to handle that academic rigor in university if they have not, performed at a top level in school. So the top universities will be out, but you can look at many universities which will really value this a very well-rounded and beautiful profile that your kid has. And I would say, therefore, carefully selecting the universities is important. Documenting what you have done is important. By documenting, as I would say, one thing is maybe making a website with all your accomplishments, or doing a channel which is showing a YouTube channel which is showing some of your videos in your different social engagements and in your sports, etc. Being able to talk about these engagements in real depth and connecting it therefore to psychology, that therefore why psychology and what you would do in it. You can also enhance that academic profile a bit by getting into a research paper either within school itself or somewhere else. So sometimes it may happen that that 80% is coming, like she's doing very well in psychology, but there are some subjects that she's struggling with, and that they'll understand. You can put a little explanation in the there is an additional information section in every in every application, so you can put a little explanation and say that these have been the reasons why my academics don't always reflect my potential over there. So those are some strategies for you to deal with this situation. Right. So if I look at the next question, Guneet, it's like early action starts on 1st November. Yes, that's right. It starts on 1st November. Then it says, how should I approach choosing a specific field such as mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, or AI? Now, see, the thing is here. Now, if you're applying for engineering, typically you are in the US. Now, again, if I restrict my answer to the US, I would say that you are applying to the School of Engineering in any university. Within the School of Engineering, you can choose to do mechanical, aerospace, anything that you want to do. But for the sake of a focus area in your application, it is important to choose some one area that you will build your story around. This you can choose basis two things. One is the kid's interest. Okay, if the interest is not there, the kid is not going to be able to do much in the first place. So within mechanical, aerospace, chemical, what is the kid really interested in, right? Or AI, robotics, what is the kid interested in, right? So one is interest, the other one is opportunity. That where are you seeing that there are opportunities in your city that the student can really do something? Where are you finding the mentors? Where are you finding, the various, you can say hello to my dog here. Hello, Toby. Say hi to everybody. Right. So that's the other way of choosing it, of saying, where do I really find the opportunities? Right. Okay, so if I can just read through the questions, what extracurriculars would you recommend if you wish someone to pursue chemical engineering, or what sports would you recommend in general? Sports, whatever you can perform well in, from chess to kabaddi to whatever it is you feel that you can perform well in, everything works, right? It's just about showing that you have the skill and the discipline to pursue something, right? And then if you look at chemical engineering, I would say that with chemical engineering, you can do a research if you have access to lab facilities, right? And some universities will give interns access to lab facilities. You need to go through a professor that will allow you to access the lab facilities where you can do some sort of chemical engineering based research, right? So you can say, I'm trying to build a product that does this thing. So I had one student who was trying to build a sort of a cloth like fiber like material that was resistant to I think melting, right? So you can try and do something like food technology. Now, one of my students has access to companies that are working in food technology, and therefore she can do a project or an internship there. So food technology is also an extension of chemical engineering. So you can see that which is that area that within chemical engineering where you have access to a lab or to some internship opportunities or something, and build your thing around that. If none of that works, then you can just do a research on secondary literature, what is already available, and then do some research around that, right? And then of course you can do all olympiads and subject based tests and so on, right? Then if I see this, please explain REA again. Yeah, and I think Gaurav has explained it
Yeah.
absolutely correctly.
So there's an SAT question, when to start preparing for the SAT.
Yes.
What about the study material? Do they need to practice in 9th and 10th grades, and how? All right. So the for the SAT specifically, best time to start is in grade 10. Finish your English prep in grade 10. That way, you've taken 50% of the chunk that you would have done in grade 11 and brought it to grade 10. English is similar. There is no class. I mean, it's very different from what you're doing academically. It has absolutely no, there is no overlay there. So it's completely different. You can start it as early as you want. But for SAT math, we need 10th grade concepts. So SAT builds on that. So if you finish your English prep during grade 10, the summer vacation soon after grade 10 is the best time to finish your SAT math prep as well. Now, the aim here is that when you start grade 11, academics really take a jump in grade 11, right? So you want to finish 80% of your prep before you start grade 11, and so that you're just doing mock tests by the time you hit grade 11. Now, material is available everywhere. If you want free material, you have enough and more material on Khan Academy, which has a tie-up with College Board. They've got topic-wise questions, they've got mock tests, they have everything that a student could possibly require. There are many companies, including our own, that has material which has lesson videos, self-paced exercising. Each question has an answer video and an answer explanation, which is meant for self-study. So there's enough material out there. Do they need to practice in 9th and 10th grades, and how? Now, that's where the PSAT comes in. Like I mentioned, why do we say take the PSAT in 8th and 9th? Because it is a light bulb moment for a child to understand that, okay, this is what I need to deliver in grade 11. I really need to start reading. By the time they come to us in grade 11, if they haven't read, they haven't set a base, right? It's too late. That ship has sailed. So if they are active in 8th and 9th, if there's one thing that kids can start doing, it's reading, 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 reading. If they can't read novels, let them read short articles. The Hindu is a great newspaper where you have brilliant, well-written pieces which will use language effectively. That goes for the SAT. Any one or two news publications, international publications like Asia Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and you will find enough articles which are for free. You don't really need to subscribe. That is something that you could be doing, but it's the discussion after reading which is more important. So you have, we don't want them to just skim for content. We want them to understand, if an author writes something, what is he saying? What is his purpose? What can we infer from it? My takeaway is different. Your takeaway is different. Evaluate each other's conversations. That is the thing that needs to be put into motion. Ideally, pick an article, give it to your child, discuss it at dinner table, so that the critical thinking process starts. If you can't do it, if parents are busy working, schedules don't match up, we have a base builder program, and we can send you the link for that if you need. It's a once a week program where we read an article, we address vocabulary and some grammar, and we read an article and have the discussion after that article. So that's what you could be doing in 9th and 10th, right? Okay, there's a question for you, Richa. University that accepts SAT in India.
Yeah, I just put this in, I'm just putting it in the chat if you see. So, a College Board itself has a whole list of universities that accept SAT in India, including Flame and Azim Premji and Kriya, and several universities over there. So, I've just put that link in the meeting group chat. You can just go through that and check it out. I hope that should work, right, Guneet?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, there's another question. Do universities offer scholarships to international students? And if so, on what basis are scholarships offered?
Again, if I focus largely in the US, yes, there are many universities that will offer some scholarship or the other. The scholarships will either be merit based or need based. For you to apply for the need based scholarships, you need to show that your income is less than about 35 lakhs or so per annum. Now, most people are not able to show that because, most incomes of parents whose students are at this stage will be beyond that. So, a lot of students are not able to apply for need based scholarships, but we are able to apply for merit based scholarships. Now, merit based scholarships, typically there is no application as such. They will consider everybody's application for it, and often it's like if they want you to join, then they'll offer you maybe $15,000 or $20,000 or something, up to their discretion, right? So I would say that you cannot depend on scholarships when you are applying to the US, right? You need to make sure that the affordability is really there. Unless you are eligible for need based scholarships, then you can strategically apply to some need based scholarships out there, right?
So the next question is, my daughter's in grade 7. She does chess, singing, piano, still very basic level. Do you suggest to choose one or go in depth for profile building or continue with these hobbies and focus more on academics?
I would say you should choose one or two, right, and go in depth in it and focus on academics.
Yeah, academics is a given. If you don't have academics, you could be the most brilliant person in the world, but you will not get in.
Not
So academics is a basic bare minimum. Is rowing a good sport?
Yeah, rowing would really have a lot of value. Now, it depends on what you mean by good sports. So, you can apply to college as a sports based admission. Now, as a sports based admission, when you apply, then you want to apply to universities that have a place in that team and that are looking to hire students who want to join the rowing team. Now, that's usually a very narrow set, and you really need to work very strategically with sports counselors who can guide you towards that. And we have tied up with a couple who can support you. If, on the other hand, you're looking at rowing simply as enhancing your profile, that's wonderful. In India, frankly, there aren't too many rowing opportunities, but I guess if you're asking, you must have access to those. So you could really build that sport. It's a great one to build in that case. UK will also really, really value rowing, right? What can you
Okay,
do for aerospace
aerospace.
engineering?
Yeah.
Now, aerospace engineering, I've had several students who've applied, and yes, it's not easy to build many, projects is not very difficult, right? Because, I find that students are able to build something around aero modeling. There are so many aero modeling kits available. One of my students had used balloons to, check out some aerodynamic principles and written a paper about it, right? Another student of mine used aero modeling and tin foil to create certain sustainable models, and then wrote a paper about it. So you can use aero modeling equipment and do some research and apply for aerospace engineering. The other thing is that you can try and get internships in companies that are using drone technology, because while you may not be able to get an aerospace kind of internship, but a lot of people more an aeronautical kind of thing, and drone technology companies might be open to give you some sort of project, so you can do that. If none of that works, there are so many materials that you can read and write about. You can blog about it, you can mention your research about it, you can do online courses. There are so many online courses in aerospace engineering. TU Delft, which is Netherlands number one and the world's number one in aerospace engineering, offers so many online courses, so you can look at that and build something. As someone in grade 11, can I still pursue sports and reach a particular level in that sports to show that to the university? Now, I'll really need to understand what sport, what level, but I think it's unlikely to really pick up or start focusing on a sport in grade 11 and really build that story. Because if you are in grade 11 today, your application year is this year, right? So you don't really have too much time to build that. I would say rather focus on academics and do internships and summer programs in the summer, or a social project might be easier to build than sports, right? Is there scope of CAs in today's world, or of, yeah, yes, I would say, right, accounting certifications like CA or CFA are very, very valuable, and they will continue to be very valuable even in a world with, full of blockchain, etc., because it's really about understanding the depth of how accounting is done and how financial products are structured. So I would say yes, there is a lot of scope, but it's very, very difficult to get through any of these certifications. So you really need to have a sort of a backup plan, or be understand that less than 10% of people get through these certifications. So you really need to put in your heart, soul, and everything you have into it to really get there. So with that knowledge, if that's your number one plan, that makes sense. Okay, some career options in business and finance, Tani. The world is full of, everything is a business, so there is a lot of scope today for sales and marketing. There is a huge amount of scope for so many things in finance. So there's corporate finance. Investment banking is really burgeoning as an area. It could be wealth management. You could be working in impact investing and green investing, generally in private equity and investing in startups. So the world of finance is huge, and I think it will continue to grow. Fintech is another very, very big area. Some of the traditional areas like banking may not be such a big deal anymore, and just like cost accountants and a lot of lower level accounting work may not be so big, because AI can do a lot of that stuff now. But the strategic finance work of making sense of the financial statements, that is very big, and it will continue to be, right? Okay, now this is a long question here saying, and I'm a grade 9 IGSE student, top universities, physics, schools topper, perform well in all these subjects. Beyond academics, actively involved in MUN student council, serving as a school representative, participating as an expo degree. I want to understand how to effectively showcase my extracurricular projects to make my application stand out. Are there specific opportunities, competitions, or initiatives that would further my strengths? So the specific opportunities will need a very specific discussion with you. So I'm going to leave out that last question. How you will showcase them? One is, of course, through the activities section. Secondly, the depth with which you talk about all these things in your essays. Thirdly, you can get optional LORs, so which is letters of recommendation from the places where you have worked, and you can put some of those up, right? And then your school's letter of recommendation will also reflect this. And sometimes what students will do is that in the additional information section, they'll put their whole story as point one, point two, point three. This is everything that I've done, to give them a overview of the profile. The other thing, of course, is to build a CV which shows everything that you've done. So if you've got all these elements, then typically it'll work quite well, right? Then if I go further, in US and UK, is it true that there's a limited amount of seats per nationality? Well, naturally, they will have some metrics, right? They don't want to fill their university with Chinese students or Indian students. So they'll try to have a balanced class, which will have, various nationalities. So naturally, you will be competing not only with your nationality, but also within your own school. They don't want to fill the school with Sri Ram students or TISB students, right? So there will be that, if 10 people from TISB are applying to the same university, then even if all 10 are really, really great, they will only take 2 or 3, right? So that much is there. Now, is there a quota as a number? I can't really say. But in general, in principle, yes, there is a limitation to how many people they'll take with of the same profile, same nationality, or same school even, right? Next one is for you.
Yes, so the next one talks about, is it too late to start preparing for additional exams like IELTS, SATs, ACTs, PT, etc.? I'm already towards the end of grade 11. I was a little delayed with my college research. So within an urgent case like mine, what would you suggest I do? You can prepare at the end of grade 11. Also, you have all the way up till October if you're doing regular admissions to write your exam. And SAT depends on how much is the gap that you're trying to bridge. There are classes available. I would say batch classes may not be the best fit if you want to do a lot many tests. But usually, if you use your summer vacation wisely, 2 months, 3 hours a day, and if the gap that you're bridging is less, I've had students who've done it in less than a month and got a brilliant score. But that student was also, preparing for the NEET exam. She was also the Tata Literary Award winner for the best essay in the country. So definitely, if you she had a very small gap to bridge. But I think you're not very late, and you can so just fill up the form, get in touch with us, and we can have a one-on-one free session where we can guide you personally about your this thing. Are there scholarships in India based on the SAT? Richa, I think you should take this.
Right. So I think that I'm actually not, I can't immediately think of scholarships that are based on your SCD score, but every university in India does have some scholarships and, some merit scholarships, some need scholarships. So if you have SAT, a good SAT score and a good academic score, you should be able to access some of them. But unfortunately, I don't have a specific answer to that
For India, yeah.
for
Best
India.
university for specialization in physics.
Right, so that, if you look at any ranking, for example, if you look at the QS World ranking by subject, you will be able to find some. I'm just trying to find a link that there it is. So I'll just share with you the subject rankings for physics via QS World, and that will allow you to see where you've, what are the top universities in that particular subject. It's just loading on my computer, so once I get that, I'll just share that with you.
We have a link here. If you have any questions which we don't have time to answer here, please fill out that link and say that this is for Richa from Inomi, and write out your question in that. We'll forward it to Richa and her team will get back to you. So don't feel that you've missed out on anything if it's not been answered within the session. For all the questions we are not being able to answer, we will get back to you after this webinar as well, sometime today, tomorrow. So, is surfing, deep sea diving, and skiing a good sport as part of profile building?
Of course, it's unusual. It's not too many students do it. So if you've done it at a decent level, it's really, really wonderful, right? Before we move on, I just want to clarify our organization is called I Know Me. It sort of means I know
I know.
myself. It's a self-discovery based organization. So, I know me, INOMI. You can check it out anytime you like, right? Okay, so they say any scope for Bharatnatyam after class 12, how to work for the dance profession. If you're saying that is there career scope, of course, dance has a lot of scope, but it also takes a lot of discipline. It's a competitive area because there are so many dancers. It takes a lot of dedication and, hard work over 10 years or so to really build yourself as a dancer who's, really well known. Unless, of course, you want to go down the Bollywood route where then there are other types of choreography kind of opportunities for you. So all that is definitely there. I feel that if a student really has the passion, they should really gun for it. Okay,
Super.
my daughter is 90% scorer, interested in biology, good with math and chemistry, decent social initiatives. 2020 pursuing badminton, come from a typical idea it's not a good university, should not go to with this academic score. No, she has a good academic score, and there are so many good universities. Richa, my main thing is that a good university is not equal to Ivy League. That's what I'm trying to say. That there are 150 good universities in the US. So one needs to open one's eyes and see those good universities and go for that. Of course, a kid with such a wonderful profile should not go to something which is not a well-reputed university. So I'm saying that there are many well-reputed universities in the world, and one should open one's eyes to them.
Also, when you're applying for a particular course, don't just go with the brand name of the top universities. Go and see which are the top 10 universities or 20 universities for that particular course. Not every top university is good for every course. So if you're looking for, say, computer science, you'll have a list of 20 different universities. And if you're looking for literature, you might find 20 completely different universities. So I think keep that in mind when you're doing your research.
Right. Okay. So where were we?
Best universities to target for aerospace engineering.
This best universities, again, if you look at the QS World rankings, you'll find that there are many subject-based rankings. I had mentioned to you Delft in the Netherlands as being a number one for aerospace, but there are many across the world. In Canada, if you look at both McGill and University of Toronto are really top class when it comes to aerospace engineering. The only thing you need to know is that as an aerospace engineer, it is difficult to get jobs if you are not a citizen of that country, because a lot of the aerospace programs, whether public or private, are highly classified, and they will not open jobs easily to someone who is not a citizen. right? So that's something to be aware of when you're going for aerospace engineering across the world, right? Okay, so what's good SAT score for reputed non-IB university? I would say 1500 plus, but 1450 plus is, I think, a very good score
A
for
good score, yeah.
university. Yeah, you should aim for 1500 plus and then see where you land, right? I think we are done. Best university in biotechnology undergraduate. I'm just sharing the subject rankings link with all of you. You can, look at the specific subject and find the best universities as per QS World for any of the subjects that you are looking at. But again, I would say take the rankings with a pinch of salt. So, if something, sometimes I've seen some really great universities being ranked at 120 because you're looking at the whole world and they're trying to be balanced across France and Australia and so on and so forth. So, I would say look at the top universities in the country that you are applying. That's a smarter way to look at this list, right?
Super. I think that's all the time we had questions for today. Thank you so much, Richa, for taking your time out to spend this with us. And if you have to all the attendees, thank you so much. It was a very interactive crowd. But if you have any questions, please put them across in the link that we have shared, and we both Richa and I will get back to you with whatever requirements you have. Right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you for all your questions and thank you, Guneet, for having me.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you.